talk to me a little bit about the economy. We're expecting the economy to expand less than 1% this year after 2 years of weak growth. How do you get back on track? What can you do for the state of Sao Paulo to help out?
Working hard, especially in Sao Paulo. The economy in Sao Paulo grows over the Brazilian growth. And this year, probably 20-25% over the Brazilian growth. And Sao Paulo is the largest state of Brazil and the largest economy of South America, even bigger than Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, and Peru, and Colombia also. So we have a strongest position in South America, and also we are doing a roadshow here in Great Britain to convince investors to go to Sao Paulo and to make new investments in our industry, in our science and technology sector, and also in the agribusiness.
Okay. Mr. Meirelles, when you look at the challenges of the Brazilian economy, what are the main obstacles for growth right now?
Today, it's the Social Security. The good news here is that Social Security is being approved, the reform of the Social Security system. That is the most important point looking forward. After that, we have a tax reform, which is also underway. And with these basic reforms, we will be restoring the growth rate. And after that, we will have only to increase productivity of the country, but that's more of a gradual move.
Yeah, I mean, are you worried? What do investors ask you the most, actually? Why is it difficult for the country to grow? Do they ask about that, or do they ask about specific investments?
At this moment, Francine, is exactly the approval of this social security reform. And yesterday, the good news that yesterday night, the Congress approved on the first run this social security reform. This is a division of position in the Brazilian economy. For the next 4 weeks, probably we have the second run at the Senate, and we'll get approval of this. And since now, after this approval, we can go fast. We can go directly to the investors, the international investors, to come to Sao Paulo, to come to Brazil, and to make good investments. And also, I have to add, in case of Sao Paulo, we have a very powerful destatization program. Roads, railways, waterways, airports, parks, 62 different areas of the state government we put in the private hands.
Yeah. So I want to ask you about privatizations shortly, but first, when you with all your experience as head of the central bank and the finance ministry, is the Fed policy we're seeing with what we heard from Jay Powell a gift to emerging markets and a gift to Brazil?
Yes, I think that it's very important at the end of the day that the Fed provides the right monetary policy for the economy. Too much stimulus would generate, at the end of the day, bubbles and possible inflation, which is less likely the latter. But on the other hand, if it doesn't move on the incentive expansionist side at the right moment, the economy can grow at a lower rate. Then what's possible is, I think the Fed is trying to set the right pace. I think they are on the right track, and we do hope that things really are working well in the U.S. because that has a reflection all over the globe. Brazil is growing anyway because we are approving the basic reforms and making all the infrastructure investments, etc. But in having said that, evidently, it's important, the pace set by the American economy.
Mr. Doria, you were talking about privatization, and this is something that our viewers are very keen to know more about. Are you convinced that actually privatizing, for example, the water utility company Sabesp is the best option?
It is. It is the best option for us, and the best option for Sabesp. Is the largest company in South America, largest in Latin America. And we are convinced, that Meirelles and I, that is the best way to Sabesp.
How much are you expecting to raise from this?
Well, in dollars, could be around almost $20 billion.
And what comes after? So this is I guess the next privatization, and then is there another company that you're looking at?
Yes, the infrastructure sectors. We are open to new investments in roads, airports. We have 20 regional airports in Sao Paulo state. We have more than 50 roads to be privatized, and also port of São Sebastião. Among others. Mm-hmm. So this will be a big opportunity for new investors in Sao Paulo.
Campo de Marte is something that has been doing news because you were talking about wanting to privatize that, transform that. Is that one of your priorities?
Yes, it's not exactly the same, but it's important too because Campo de Marte will be transformed in the big park, not more as an airport. It will be a big park in the middle of Sao Paulo city, and we'll transfer airplanes to another private airport near to the Campo de Marte. And Campo de Marte will be, for the next year, a big park, a big amusement park for the public, and open, of course, for them.
Mr. Meirelles, how much do you worry about trade wars? We talked a little bit about the strength of the U.S. economy, but there's these trade tensions between President Trump and other parts of the world. Does that make you worry about global growth and the global economy impacting Brazil and impacting the Sao Paulo state?
No, I think that the trade war, at least in words so far, is something obviously that is a concern. But the American economy is strong enough, I think, not to create enough problems for other economies which are doing well in Brazil. The question in Brazil is that the basic reform that the country is performing is so important a part of the Brazilian economy that this step is so decisive that once the Social Security is approved and tax reform is approved, we think Brazil is going to be growing, and evidently a little bit lower, a little bit less related to the U.S. economy, but it's not as decisive for Brazil as it is for other countries.
But do you think investors in 2019 into 2020 will be back in emerging markets?
I think so. I think eventually this is going to happen, but particularly for Brazil. We have been talking to investors here in London, etc., and before that in New York. And we see clearly that with the approval of the reforms, definitely the level of confidence in Brazil will be strong, is already becoming, and that it's by itself, it's a leading factor for investment there. Evidently, that if there is more resources going to emerging markets in general, that also helps Brazil, but Brazil today is in a situation that is not so dependent on the general flow to emerging markets.
And if I can add, Francine, especially in Sao Paulo. Sao Paulo is a nation in a nation.
45 million people, to put it into context.
It's the strongest consumer market of South America and the third in Latin America. So, and we have a big infrastructure also in the state, in railways, in roads, in ports, airports. The infrastructure in Sao Paulo is heavy and well structured, and the consumer market is very, very strong. So this is an attractive point extra to the investors that want to go to Brazil.
Mr. Doria, you've been close to President Bolsonaro. Do you intend to run for president in 2022?
It's not time to talk about that. The time is to do a good administration. We are in the beginning, Mr. Bolsonaro and I, 6 months. So we have 3.5 years ahead. The time now is to make a good administration, not to tell or to debate presidential elections.